Hey, howdy, and a big welcome back to Clem Hawks, folks. I'm Yak, ready to take you through another edition of MLB Trade Rumors here today. And man, do I got a doozy for you. We finally have a hypothetical trade regarding someone we've already talked about, right? Obviously, now MLB Network getting very heavily involved in this trade deadline. And of course, that's where we've been getting a lot of material for things here on Clem Hawks' MLB Network. But now you got things slowly starting to creep out that here's a hypothetical, here's what it looks like in our eyes, here's what to look for. And when the experts start weighing in on what they're looking for in a trade, that is always a good sign that we could see some action here at the trade deadline. So, folks, let me get this pulled up for you and we will talk about this guy right here. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel, what I want you to do is take the next little bit, consider sticking around with us over the trade deadline here and enjoying things here on Clem Hawks as it goes along, because I promise you we will have some coverage. I will be working on August 2nd, but of course August 1st I'm off, and of course we should have some good coverage from everybody else on the channel on August 2nd as things break down. So, folks, we've talked about Shohei Ohtani. How about we finally talk about what a package for Shohei Ohtani would look like, and how about we look at the Seattle Mariners and what they could be willing to give up to get him. So it's a one-player trade back to the Seattle Mariners in the eyes of the MLB Network. This is, of course, they're using the Mariners MLB.com prospect rankings as well. But then in exchange, the Angels get rebuilt from the ground up and still have a guy like Mike Trout in the system in exchange for Shohei Ohtani. And this is where it gets really exciting right here, right now. And I'm not sure why I'm so quiet here tonight. So just bear with me and hopefully you can hear me a little bit better as this video goes along. However, Emerson Hancock, their number 4 prospect in the Seattle Mariners system. He's a right-handed pitcher. George Kirby, who's an absolute stud for the Seattle Mariners. Catcher Harry Ford, who's at number 2 on their prospect rankings. Shortstop Noelvi, probably properly Tyson. Marte, number 1 on their prospect rankings. And then, of course, their stud little outfielder there, a guy who's been up in the majors a little bit this year, Kyle Lewis, who could very well be the biggest part of the trade right there. But you're talking about 4 guys, 5 guys that all individually could be the biggest part of the trade for the Los Angeles Angels. When you're talking about, essentially, this is not talking about taking prospects. You're talking about George Kirby and Kyle Lewis, who are already arrived, but you're talking about 3 of the top 4 prospects in the Mariners system as well, and 3 of the top 4 best prospects in MLB realistically. Like, these are guys that are out there in that top 100 and are definitely on the list to must get if you make a big trade. While for Shohei Ohtani, the Angels could regroup 3 great prospects, 2 guys just starting out their career, and really go out there and start building their team dynamically around an aging Mike Trout, getting him back to the postseason, and trying to win something next season. That's obviously what they'd be looking to do, and obviously, too, is if it gives you a trade chip, say an Emerson Hancock or Harry Ford come next trade deadline, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So, for the Mariners, you get Shohei Ohtani, though. That's end of day. That's what you get there, and that is a huge kind of get for the Mariners right there. Right there in the thick of that wild card race. They're right there trying to get something going here towards the trade deadline. And this would be a huge AL West trade, by the way, because they're both in the AL West. But you think about how that would shake up, and remember, Shohei Ohtani is very good against the AL West as well, as far as I can see for the numbers. But for Seattle, if they can hope Houston settles off and they can start winning 4 out of 5 ball games, especially once you bring Shohei Ohtani in, a star player of that caliber. You're 11 games back of the Houston Astros, and currently in the wild card, you're sitting there. Give me a sec. I can't get it to load. There it is. Sitting in the wild card, you're a half game up on the Tampa Bay Rays and 3 games up on the Cleveland Guardians for last place in the wild card. So for the Seattle Mariners, if you can go from great to very great, which is exactly what bringing in Shohei Ohtani would do for the Seattle Mariners, you could very well run that on the Blue Jays, who are plus 2 games on the Seattle Mariners. And then you just kind of go up there, run it, run it, run it, run it, run it, and try and maybe make a run at the division. Obviously, that's not what you're trying to do 100%. You're just trying to settle comfortably into the top wild card spot. But for the Mariners, right, if you get somebody of Shohei Ohtani's caliber, you have no excuse not to be gunning for the top of the division and trying to make the Houston Astros fall down a little bit. So, folks, that's really all there is to this one, right? Is a mock trade in which, right, Shohei Ohtani goes to the Seattle Mariners, and Emerson Hancock, George Kirby, Harry Ford, Noel Levy, Nolvi, sorry, I forget there's no E in there, Nolvi, Marte goes to the Angels, as well as Kyle Lewis. So you got to keep that in mind. Is there is a lot to like there for sure if you are an Angels fan, but especially if you are a Seattle Mariners fan. So there's a lot to get going. That, though, in one last closing thought, does pretty much bankrupt your farm system. How much do you like that as a Mariners fan? I'm not sure, but for the Mariners, they as well have quite a few studs coming up through the ranks, so maybe not the worst thing possible. Folks, I'm Yak. This is Clem Hawks. I hope you've taken the past 5-6 minutes, whatever it took me to get through this video since I asked you to subscribe, to consider subscribing to us here on Clem Hawks, and we will talk to you in the next video sometime today when we talk the next MLB or NHL rumor right here on Clem Hawks. I am up on out of here.